Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Zuko, and welcome to a new unboxing video. Now, I just did one of these, and truthfully, I was planning to make something else this week, but that video is gonna take a little bit longer to make, and I kinda wanna do this today. Now, we have about 4 or 5 figures to unbox for you, which is about the same as last time. I just don't remember exactly what I grabbed over to the side over there, but the main point of this video is this box right here. This is a box that was sent over to me by the Miyazaki Man, who you may be familiar with on YouTube. I've collaborated with him a couple of times over on his channel, and he's just a genuinely nice guy from the time I've known him. So a couple months back, I started using Mercari JP. I got really addicted to looking for deals on that website because it really does seem like a great place to shop if you're willing to work with like proxies and middleman services. And if you're not too familiar with these terms, essentially these are services that will help you buy products that don't normally ship outside of Japan. But with their help, you can get them with a couple of extra steps, right? But the Miyazaki Man actually does offer this service to people who support him. So I figured since we were talking all the time, I'd hit him up. I'd ask him for some help, and he was more than happy to, right? So I got this big box right here. He was willing to like hold the figures and whatnot. There's some other items in here which I'll get to in a second, but he held them for a while. He helped me like haggle a little bit on Mercari JP because that is something you can do. He packed things up pretty nicely as it seems. This box is very sturdy, so he didn't skimp out there either. So I wanted to give him a shout out just in case you want to know another option out there which might help you secure some good deals or just figures that you normally can't find. So yeah, thank you very much, and let's get started. So I haven't really figured out my cramped situation over here, so I'm gonna put the box down here and then open it and pull stuff out. Is that cool? I hope that's cool. Alright, so there's an assorted amount of goodies inside, a couple of figures, but we have other figures over there, so this will be a sizable video and whatnot. What do I want to grab first? There's chocolate inside. I didn't order chocolate. I don't know what this is. I'm not going to eat this on camera. It says cuckoo, and it looks like black and white chocolate of some kind. Oh wait, no, it says down here, brown sugar and rich milk. That's probably very delicious, but I'm not eating on camera. I don't like doing that, I'm sorry, but it's probably tasty. All right, let's do one of the figures first, because I figure that intro is probably pretty long. Now, this, can you see it? I don't know if you can see it, you could probably see it. This, in my never-ending quest to collect Taiga figures, is one that I just didn't have. And that might seem blasphemous if you know me, but I'll get to why in a second. Alright, so here we have the Taiga Chinese dress figure. This is very light. I forgot how light some of these older figures are. Now, how could I not have this? What kind of collector of Taiga am I if I don't have this old school Chinese dress Taiga figure? Well, I actually do. I have the black version, the Chinese dress that's in black instead. And I actually picked this up in Japan in like 2013, a very long time ago. This is the harder to find variant, but because I just can't help myself, I kind of wanted the white one too. So I don't really expect this to be a surprise, but I am kind of curious to how these two compare. Taiga gets so many recolors even today. With like the wedding dress figure, she has the normal white dress and a pink dress. And I don't have the pink dress. I'm probably not gonna pay for that because it's a bit expensive and a bit more elusive. Oh. There goes the base. Alright, so she gets like a lavender base instead of a black base. It's actually a little scuffed, which is like, how does that even happen? Nobody opened this before. But it's okay. It's old. I understand. Her hair is actually a bit more like orange than this one. That's interesting. And I don't think my figure's faded, but it's just clearly a different color. I'll take some better photos in post, but that's interesting. I didn't know there was like a difference in color here. So she has one peg on her foot, and then you kind of just like place it on, right? And she kind of just like floats there, but you're supposed to slide in the very long, ornate chair like right behind her, and then that's it. And then you're done. There you go. We got 2 Taiga Chinese dress figures. Now, did I need 2? No. But, you know, got a problem and whatnot. I like collecting this character's figures, and for the price that I got it for, can't really complain. It was like 50-something bucks at the end of the day. And I'll pay that any day of the week for a new Taiga figure in my collection. So, essentially the same figure, right? The chair is the same, the base is designed the same, but the color is different, and the dress's pattern is also the same. From a glance, I can already tell that the skin complexions are a little different, and I don't know if that's due to age, but the black dress is a bit more pale in comparison to the white dress, and I don't really have like a preference here, but I guess that's just something to take note of. Also, I just realized that their ribbons that are tying up the bun hair are also a different color. I do prefer the way the black dress looks now that I'm like looking at them side by side. Not only does it seem a bit more like shinier, like it's made of silk, but if you look at it under better lighting, it actually has like a bit of purple to it, whereas the white dress is really just white with like the pink flowers, which is fine, but it does feel a bit more basic in comparison. Now, I think this is a cute figure. The one thing they do absolutely right here is the face. While it doesn't look perfect from every angle, if you get it at the right angle, it's very accurate and reminiscent of the anime's art style. Oh, and she has these extra hair bits if you want to display her with a few extra strands of hair coming out of the buns. It looks nice. Now, there is one thing about this figure that has always bugged the shit out of me. Both figures have it, and you might have noticed it, maybe, but if you take a look at her feet, doesn't matter if you're into feet, right? Just take a look at her right foot and compare it to her left, and you should immediately notice that her right foot is so much bigger and longer than the left one. And it's because they got real lazy, right? She's not necessarily like in the shoe completely, but they also just didn't want to sculpt her toes or something, so they just filled it out, and they just hoped that no one would notice. Well, I did. I think everybody did. It's so silly looking, but if you can ignore that, which honestly you can because it's a cheap figure, if you find it for a good deal, then these two are still nice. Like, if you enjoy Toradora, you want to collect figures of Taiga, then you kind of have to deal with older figure problems and just like quality. The show's old. It's from 2010, right? So all the figures for the most part came out during that era before, you know, figure companies really stepped up their game. I think for standards back in the day, these are fine. These are made by Wave. I don't remember if I said that. And they probably only retailed for like 5,000 to 7,000 yen, so they weren't that expensive, but don't get it twisted. There were absolutely nicer figures back in the day, so these won't win any awards, but they're still cute. And if you like Taiga, I would still give them a recommendation if you find them for a good deal. Okay, but we're not done with Taiga just yet. We got another little thing over here. Now this is excessive packaging. I don't know if you know what this is, but this is a Petite Nendoroid. Do any of you remember what a Petite Nendoroid is? It's not like a hard thing to put together of what that could possibly be, but this is a big box for what is like essentially this tall. I hate when you have to open like little compartments like this, but give me a minute. Okay, what I'm realizing is that this is extremely sticky. This Taiga wasn't. I'm very surprised that this figure had no like stickiness or shininess to it, but this Petite Nendoroid is like already all over my fingers, and I don't like that. I don't think I've ever touched a figure that was this sticky before, and I'm glad it's something that was like $15, because this is pretty gross, I'm not gonna lie. This is extremely cute and exactly what I wanted, but my god, do I not want to touch this anymore. So yeah, I'll just talk about it while it's on the desk. This is based off of the final episode outfit if you've watched the show. I won't talk about it if you haven't, but the show's so old at this point, I can't imagine spoiling it for people out there, but just in case, I won't talk about it. There is a Nendoroid that is based off of this design as well, and I have it. I don't know where it is. It might be in a box somewhere, but yeah, you know, it's just a Petite Nendoroid. Small Nendoroid. That's the point of this. It's small, and it's cute. They used to be like $5 to $10 at most, and then they just stopped making them. But they're kind of bringing it back with the Nendoroid Surprise line, though I think we only have Haikyuu and Jujutsu Kaisen so far. And we haven't even seen the JJK ones yet. As like little bonuses for like buying a magazine or buying like a special edition for a game, I kind of miss this. But yeah, it's cute. Just another Taiga thing in my collection that I needed. I took a minute to put her in some like soapy warm water. Hopefully that cleans her up over time. I'll check on her in like 10 minutes. But let's continue with some other stuff, some littler things. What the hell is this? Alright, so you know how I'm very annoying about Xenoblade? Well, we're gonna continue that with these little notebooks. Now, these are actually, I believe, My Nintendo Japan awards. You can't get these anywhere else. They're notebooks of one of the main characters, Mio, from Xenoblade 3. It's essentially her diary, and I guess to explain very briefly with only minor spoilers up to the end of Chapter 1, the characters of this world, they only live for about 10 years, and they're always fighting in a war, and Mio's running out of time with only like 3 months left, so you can imagine how that'll affect the plot moving forward. But yeah, it's kind of neat how they included a bunch of pages with these boxes, which are essentially her days left, and there's even some text in the beginning, which I believe is from the end of Chapter 4. Not that I can read it, though. Also, the stickers are cute. They're just like chibi versions of the characters that are found in the menus of the game. Now, I have two because people on Mercari JP tend to just like sell multiple at once, so I got two. I know somebody who will probably want the other one, but it's like $5, right? $5 to $7 for each of these. I'm down with that. This will probably eventually become hard to find, so I like having it. Also play Xenoblade, based series. I think it would be for the best if I don't dwell on anything not figure related, but next up we have some t-shirts. Now these are Studio Trigger related, and I am a big fan. This is V-Ver, it's like V-V-E-A-R. So I don't know if it's supposed to be where, but like spelt funny, or just V-V-Ver. I don't know. But they made a Luluco shirt, and I like Luluco. That's probably my guilty pleasure trigger show. That shit is my jam. This is a lot of packaging for a t-shirt. I feel like that's very wasteful. But can we see that? I don't know if that's like showing up on the camera. I don't even know what it looks like yet. I think that's pretty cute. Now, the problem I have with this is that I know somebody who's probably gonna want this more than me in my life, so I might not actually keep this t-shirt. But instead of getting one t-shirt, we got two. Now this one is wrapped much more simpler. I think this is just like saran wrap from the kitchen. So this is another Studio Trigger shirt, except this time, it's got their mascots on it, which I think looks fucking awesome. Now, I'm definitely keeping this one. I'll probably wear this in the next video because I love this design. But yeah, very colorful, very like explosive, just what I want to see in like a Studio Trigger t-shirt. But yeah, this is just something that I didn't know existed until I was like looking for more stuff to put into this box. And I was pleasantly surprised. I like buying these graphic tees from Japan. So that's t-shirts. Now I have one more thing left in here, except that there's actually a wall scroll. And I did not order a wall scroll. So what is this? Who are these people? I don't know who these two are. It looks like an old Eroge. If I had to guess, is there a name? Oh, I absolutely cannot read that. Shit. I'm gonna have to ask him. I guess he just threw in a wall scroll for me. My walls in this room are pretty bare. Now, I'm not staying in this room forever. I do have to move again, but it's colorful enough. I could hang it up somewhere, probably. Though I don't know if I really want to drill holes in this wall since I'm gonna move soon. But I do appreciate the bonus gift. Thank you very much. All right, final box, final figure. I kind of blue-balled you there a little bit, but hopefully you didn't mind that. Now, this is a Touhou figure, and one that I kind of regretted not picking up. It became a little hard to find in the States. I'm not exactly sure in other parts of the world, but I know AmiAmi, at the point where I was looking for this figure, had it for like 22,000 yen. But there were people selling it brand new for like 14 on Mercari JP. So this is Satori from, I believe, Touhou 11. There's a lot of games in the Touhou series. Now, I've talked about her sister before, Koishi, who has a 1/4 scale coming up by Freeing. And truth be told, QSQ, the maker of this figure, has also made a figure of her sister. But I like this one a little bit more. It's a bit more new. The other figure of Koishi is from like 2016, and I believe this is 2019. So just like the standards of this company have improved over time to the point where I feel more comfortable buying this figure instead of the other one, but maybe I'll be convinced after I see how this one turned out. So like most Touhou figures, especially back in the day, this is a 1/8 scale, so some of you guys are probably going to think this is a bit too small, but it's the standard for the series, and it's going to fit with like every other figure I have from Touhou, so that is fine by me. Alright, let's check her out. First up, the base. It is a black and pink, like, semi-transparent color. It actually looks very pretty under the right lighting. It is very light, though, so we'll place that down. We'll pick her up. No real assembly outside of just putting the peg into her foot. Just gotta find the right angle for you. There you go. Alright, let's move this stuff. So I think what stands out the most to me at first on Satori is the gradation on her top and dress. The color palette has a heavy pastel look to it, but there's this like nice application of white layered on top of the light blue and pinkish red. You can't really miss it on the dress considering how like outward flowing the sculpt is. Honestly, the sculpt of her clothes has this real sense of flow that's kind of hard to place into words, but the bouncy nature of the cloth and frills of her sleeves is, dare I say, captivating. It's almost like she's in a dance of sorts, just twirling about. Second best thing would probably be her face. Her expression is so kind, like so gentle, and the eye decals are top-notch design-wise. She's got soft purple for both her eyes and hair, and that contrast with the rest of her clothes is excellent stuff. Oh yeah, and she's holding on to an eyeball. I probably should have talked about that sooner. Some Touhou designs are out there, for sure. I remember reading that Satori has the ability to read, like, the heart and mind of others, and perhaps that's through the eye itself, but the most distinct thing about this figure are the wires that are just kind of, like, erratically running through it. Maybe I should call them veins, I'm not really sure, but they've got a shifting gradient of like orange, yellow, and red, and some of the veins are literally going into her, so it almost feels like I'm looking at her heart. Also, I just love the fact that she's wearing slippers and these like frilly socks. I think that's really cute. But they went with normal underwear instead of bloomers for this figure, which I don't know if that's ill-fitting, but I wasn't expecting it. I kind of just assumed that all Touhou figures would have bloomers, but this one does not. So overall, I'd say a pretty good showing from Q's Q. I love the colors on this figure. I think it has like a little bit of grace to it, the way she's posed, and the quality control is fairly good for the most part. I'm sure there's like little things here or there, but for the most part, I think it holds up. And for the price that I paid for it, essentially the retail price, definitely worth it if you're into collecting Touhou figures. Maybe a little too small, probably not that interesting if you don't though. Alright, so that's going to do it for the box. I've cleaned up at this point. I also grabbed Taiga. She's no longer dirty, so I could put her on the desk. Yeah, thank you very much once again. But now let's move on to something a bit more degenerate, I guess. Let's talk about Bomber Girl. I was going to do like a separate episode on all these Bomber Girl figures, but I don't think, truthfully, that many people care about this series. It's pretty niche, all things considered, and I'm kind of tired of holding on to some of these without unboxing them, so I figured now is the best time to do so. But we'll start off fairly tame with the newest figure I actually got, the Wave Pine Bomber Girl figure. This was probably the figure I was anticipating the most out of the 3 figures I got from Bomber Girl, simply because of the outfit that she's wearing. I just like that they actually made a figure of the main design for once. I mean, I don't mind the cheerleader outfits and the swimsuit figures that these characters get, but it's nice to see them just remember what these characters typically look like. So the one thing I know about this figure is that her tail is apparently very fragile, so I'll have to be careful when assembling her. Face looks pretty good. It kind of reminds me of a Sonic ring. I imagine this is just like, I don't know, the icon that's around the character when you select them. If you don't know what Bomber Girl is, it's essentially just like a really horny interpretation of Bomberman. Konami must have really needed some money, which makes sense because the company really fell from grace, and they weren't really doing anything in the video game industry, but at some point, they were just like, alright, we need a good idea. Let's turn all of these Bomberman characters into really, like, degenerate-ass designs, and let's see where it goes from there. So she's got a metal peg, but she kind of just, like, swivels on the base, so you gotta be careful how you move her about, I guess? I mean, she seems stable, but I don't like how I can literally just turn the figure around while she's in, you know what I'm saying? The tail explosion. This looks awesome, but yeah, you could, oh my god, this looks so easy to break. Yeah, I don't even want to mess with this thing. Let's just get it into her backside. And last up is her hat, which is pretty cute. Looks like a bomb fuse. I think it's magnetic. And there you go. Fit like a glove. Alright, this is actually pretty nice, you know? wave quality has certainly improved over the last 10 years. And as far as a Bomber Girl figure goes, I'm pretty happy with this one. Now, I don't know why I said that since this is the first one I opened, but I don't know, just chalk that up to my brain not really working while on camera. Anyway, this is Pine, who I believe is an original character. A lot of characters from Bomber Girl are references or just straight up from other games, though she's often seen with this little tiger-looking fellow named Pass. You can see them on her little backpack. It's very retro in design, which is a nice nod to Bomberman's beginnings. Pine is super smug, extremely arrogant. She proclaims herself as a genius, and all of that really comes through with her expression. It's absolutely brilliant. I said it before when she went up for pre-order, but it's one of my favorite faces I've seen on a figure in quite some time. The fangs are sculpted pieces, the eyes are colorful, and her pupils are clubs, which is a motif found throughout the design. But yeah, if you like smug, it doesn't really get more smug. You can just tell how little she thinks of you, which makes the other expression that she comes with even better, because it's like a flustered, embarrassed faceplate. The eyes are kind of spiraling, the tears are starting to flow. It may even be more expressive than the first, and this is certainly not a face you often see on scales, but it doesn't really fit with the pose, like, at all. The only way I can see that it would is if you see it as, like, the exact moment she was caught off guard. Like, she realizes she is being a fool, and she hasn't had a chance to even move from her original stance. It's fun for sure, but I probably wouldn't use it that much. Also, this figure has a head tilt gimmick, so you can swivel her head around a bit, but, like, I don't know, this feels a bit tacked on to me. I'm probably not gonna mess around with that. One thing that completely changed from the prototype photos that I'm noticing are her hair grenades. They used to be a bit more traditional in terms of gold paint, but now they essentially remind me of like Christmas tree ornaments with how reflective they are. Like, I can literally see myself when I'm looking at this figure, and it's a bit strange, but I think I'm starting to warm up to it. The bell by her chest and the buckle by her waist are essentially the same deal, but there are some bits of like normal gold paint used for the buttons running down her outfit and the buttons on her pockets. But I just find her outfit in general to be really cute, like the shoes and the bow ties that are tied around her ankles and tail, the backpack that we mentioned earlier, and the bomb fuse hat. The color scheme is very orange creamsicle. Shading is fairly light throughout the figure, but they're going for like bright, bold yellows and oranges to contrast the white, and I think it works when you compare her to the artwork from the game. I can tell the rim of her dress, like the frills, have a slight blue airbrushing applied, which gives the frills some dimension, but areas like her hair or leggings essentially have none. Overall, it's really clean, but definitely light on realism. They want this to be animated and very vibrant, which I think they nailed. But outside of all of that, we gotta talk about her tail, which is essentially a fuse that's been lit. The sparks are like flying, there's little clubs that are popping out from all the sides, it's very spiky as well. It's a visual treat, but one wrong move and I think this piece will break. As far as picking her up right now, I believe you can do so if you like this figure. It seems like every store has a little bit of stock, and I believe she costs about 21,000 yen. I feel like that's a bit high, but a lot of the Bomber Girl figures are. I think it's just kind of an expensive IP, so they jack the price up a little bit, but I'm not really upset at the price I paid, and they really nailed what they had to, just like the vibrancy and the expression, just like making the character come to life. And while I'm definitely afraid of breaking the tail at some point, it looks amazing. It really does. It adds a lot to just the figure's whole composition. And yeah, you know, I kind of didn't think that highly of Wave, but this is a good showing from them. Absolutely. So it does get my recommendation, but it's definitely not for everybody. I don't expect many people watching this video to want this, but if you like Bomber Girl, if you like the designs, this could be one to get. Next up, remember this figure? We have Grim Aloe Succubus Cheer costume version. I've had this for a while. I kind of teased it. I said I was going to wait for some other figures to come in, and now is the time to finally unbox her. Now correct me if I'm wrong if you know this character, but I believe she does not originate from Bomberman, and instead is a character from like Quiz Magic Academy, which I'm not very familiar with, but I would assume is also a Konami IP. But yeah, unlike Pine, this is a different outfit that the character, I guess, gets at some point in Bomber Girl. which makes sense. They gotta give people more incentive to keep putting in their dollary dues. Adorable base, just a bunch of hearts and like a symbol. Wow, this is really heavy, but her twin tails are massive. Holy shit. I feel like such an animal holding a figure by the hair, but it just seems like the best way to get a grip. Wow, the paint job on these wings are like immaculate. I love the red and black that they did for the paint job here. They feel just like the Romelia wings, very brittle. Like, I feel like this would be extremely easy to break if you ever dropped it. Alright, here we go. We got Grimm Aloe all set up. I believe the wings are in, but maybe not, like, as far as they can be. I'm a little worried because of the way you have to, like, wiggle them in. But nevertheless, this should do for now, and I'll just adjust it later if I have to. Now, this is not a cast-off, but I would not really hesitate to say that this is one of the looter things in my collection. It's the kind of figure you probably wouldn't want your mom to see if I had to guess, but I think Amakuni definitely delivered as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, so Grimm Aloe as a cheerleader, it really doesn't leave that much to the imagination. The top is pretty much comprised of thin latex stripes, and the skirt is covering like nothing on the back. I mean, you put the words cheerleader and succubus together, this is the route you're gonna end up on, but it's a pretty outrageous outfit no matter how you slice it. The pose and expression too, I'm pretty confident in saying that it's likely that Grimm is not cheering for your ass at all, but why would a succubus want you to succeed anyway? I feel like it makes sense. She's super smug and fairly provocative. I feel like I could just say devilish, and that would make a lot of sense considering the tail, the bat wings, and the horn. Actually, let's just talk about the paint job while we're talking about these pieces. These parts are all painted in a very rich shade of red with deep black gradients and then topped with a glossy finish. There's some other sections with gloss applied, but the succubus traits are easily the nicest looking pieces on this figure. Outside of the red and black, white makes up a large portion of the palette, which just keeps giving you like constant contrast points. Even the blue stripes are there to work with the red. But man, you know when you see a figure go up like for pre-order and you're kind of making guesses on how big it's going to be when you finally see it in person? Yeah, that didn't work out for me. I had no idea her twin tails are going to be this freaking massive, and I thought they'd be fairly plain too considering the amount of white paint, but like, no, this shit's beautiful. They've highlighted her strands perfectly, and the wavy flow and curling of the tips. Like, Grimm's got the width of about 3 normal figures. It's kind of insane how large this figure actually is. Other things I like about this piece, the sculpt and colors of her pom-poms. They're very vibrant, and there's a lot of like layering here that they had to manage to get this level of detail. The tail, I think it's neat how it wraps around her leg. There's a very like satisfying curve to both the tail and the wings. The little skull that's on her tie, just a fun extra detail to appreciate. And of course her Converse heels, which I didn't even realize these were a real thing, but I really like them. Do other figures have shoes like this? I can only imagine that the other Bomber Girl cheerleader figures will have them. And after looking at Grimm, I think those have risen a bit on my list of most wanted figures. So I brought in Pine just to get the size comparison, and they're very comparable, right? I feel like Grimm would be a little bit taller if she was standing up. I don't know if that's actually accurate. They're both fairly short as far as I'm aware in terms of like their canonical height. So yeah, at least they line up together, and it does feel like they would fit well on a shelf. The pose on Grimm though is a bit ridiculous. You'll see what I mean when I'm using like the rotating table, but she's just perching her butt like all the way up. Her backside is just like, and it just really reveals all. So yeah, there's no real hiding that feature of this figure. But yeah, you know what you're getting into if you buy something like this. Very suggestive overall. Both of these figures are so smug, like I don't know which one is better in terms of smugness, but like, I don't know, this series just loves that kind of design element. They're very expressive, for sure. The aftermarket prices for Grimm seem to be about the same as retail. Like, she didn't jump up in price, but she also didn't really drop in price either. So if I had to guess, she's about like 20,000 to 24,000, something like that. Which is reasonable. I think that's reasonable for a figure of this quality. Amakuni doesn't really miss as far as I'm aware. Like, a lot of their figures seem to just be like premium stuff. Their prices are definitely going up, but I think considering how much plastic is involved in this figure, the retail price and essentially the aftermarket price really isn't that bad for this. So it gets my recommendation. I don't know if I'm easy to please, but I'm liking these figures so far. I think both of these have turned out a bit better than I was expecting. Well, we only have one more figure in the video, so let's get to it. We talked about Pine, we talked about Grimm, but we got one more Bomber Girl to talk about, and that is going to be another Pine. Now, this one I wasn't really anticipating buying, but when she came out, I was kind of assuming that this would maybe become hard to find, but of course, since I bought it, you can still find this very easily. Not like Aqua though. The swimsuit Aqua figure is really expensive on the aftermarket. So I don't know if I'm gonna keep this one, but I figure I might as well just unbox it for you. Also, thanks to DHL for damaging the box. Really appreciate it in case I want to sell this on the aftermarket. Makes my life a lot harder. Oh well. I will say I like how thin this box is. They didn't really waste too much space despite how wide it is. But yeah, let's see what we're dealing with. This is actually a 1/6 scale, so she's not even gonna fit with the other two figures I bought, which is more reason to not keep this, but I mean, I could be convinced if this looks good. Very tiny base, has some good weight to it. I like the way this looks. It has a blue metallic paint job to the rim and like an off yellow middle. Looks pretty good. I like this color palette. Here we have Pine herself. She's got some ridiculous under boob. I don't know if you could see that, but yeah, the paint job is very different compared to the other figures. I gotta say, I don't love the way her skin like feels. I know you're not supposed to touch your figures, but it's a little bit rougher than I would like. So I guess knock a point for that, but not too big of a deal. Now she comes with a tail as well, and I gotta say I like the blue airbrushing they like apply to it, but you could tell even without like close-ups, this explosion piece is so much less like impressive. Really tacked on in comparison, but it also feels like I'm not gonna break it, so that is a plus. Oh, it's supposed to like wrap around her leg or something. Okay, hold on. Okay, that looks good. Something tells me I did it wrong, but that looks good. Oh, and she has a little kitty cat that goes on her head. There you go. But anyway, this is Pine in her bikini and little shorts, which you can take off, but I've read people break this part. I'm not sure if you can like put it back together. It might be a forced cast off thing, but I'll leave, again, future me to decide the fate of the figure. But if it wasn't apparent from the other Pine, this character is pretty busty, right? She is not modest, and they really want you to appreciate that on this figure, considering she's like pulling on the bikini and it's pushing up against her chest a little bit, just to, I don't know, give it a sense of realism. And I do like that. It's also playful, how she's pulling on the strings and whatnot. But yeah, very different paint jobs compared to these two figures. You can really see it in the hair. The hair on the Wave figure is like definitely more vibrant for sure. It's a very bright yellow, but it doesn't have that much shading, whereas the Wave figure absolutely does. It's also like a slightly duller yellow, which I don't mind. The grenades are completely different between the two figures. Like the paint job here is what I imagine Wave's version was going to originally look like based on the promotional photos, but they changed them last minute. The same gold can be found on the bikini as well as her armband. Even though the blue matches her hair, not really my favorite color combination for a bikini. But something's telling me that that's not what I'm supposed to be focusing on here. Jokes aside, the chest sculpt doesn't really have like any lazy weld, and considering the bikini barely contains them, there's a lot of surface area here to appreciate. As for the other torso, it sees her spreading her arms out completely to the side, showing herself off very proudly. It's fun and definitely in character, though slightly less interesting to me. Similar to Wave's Pine, you can see that her slippers here have pass on them. It's pretty much the exact same design as the backpack, but this is for some reason the second figure today that we're looking at with slippers on. Kinda weird, but okay. At the very least, they actually sculpted her feet and didn't just phone it in like Wave did with their Taiga figure. You do have to be careful with the cat though, because there is not a magnet. It kind of just like wraps around her head. So if you move this figure too much, there's a likelihood that the cat is gonna fall down. It is fairly hollow. I don't think it would break from a fall unless it's really high up, but just, you know, think about that before moving the figure. Yeah, I don't really get a lot of opportunities to compare two figures of the same character at the same time, so this is kind of fun to me, just seeing the different approaches each company had. I mean, I know one is a bikini figure, and the other one is a magical girl idol outfit of sorts, but even the smaller details are quite different. You got the grenades, the vibrancy of their hair, the extra fluff that Wing's hair seems to have. The bow ties on their tails are drastically different in terms of size, and especially especially the explosion. Like, Wing thought of longevity and practicality, but Wave wanted spectacle and flair. This figure has the exact same problem I had with Ryza though. It's very unflattering from above. In fact, I think it's way worse. This figure has angles that look straight up ugly to me, which is really unfortunate. I still think this faceplate looks better than the other one though. Like, yeah, it's kind of smug and it dodges the angle issues a bit, but on my figure at least, her mouth just looks kind of off. Maybe it's the positioning, maybe it's the teeth, I'm not really sure, but I'm just not really a big fan of it. Compared to everything I've opened today, this Pine is probably in 4th place. It's not bad, but I guess it's sorta too basic for me. The paint job is solid without much hiccups, but at the same time there's nothing here really grabbing my attention. It's also hard for me to think of anything meaningful to say when staring at her. Like, I think it's pretty obvious what the appeal is here. The design elements that carry over from her normal design, like the grenades and the tail, do bring a bit of flavor to this swimsuit figure though, so that's something at the very least. But I absolutely prefer the other 2 Bomber Girl figures that I opened today, and honestly, Satori is also quite pretty as well. I don't know if I could say objectively, but subjectively I feel like this looks a little bit better than Wing's Pine as well. You know, Wave's Taiga, it's not gonna stack up considering its age, but whatever. Yeah, I don't think this one is too hard to find on the aftermarket. I think there's plenty on Ami Ami. In fact, I think she's still in stock new if you like this. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's unboxing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I feel like these figures today were very, Zuko. I don't know if that makes sense, but it wasn't really, like, super popular stuff this time around. So hopefully you guys still enjoyed it. Next week should be One Hobby. Haven't really heard a lot from Good Small Company talking about the event, but they said it's on the 27th of May. So I'll get a video out as soon as I can covering the event. But until then, thanks for watching. Like the video, subscribe and whatnot. And I'll see you around. Later.